And now back to the election campaign, and I'm joined by the Chancellor and Tory election strategist, George Osborne. Good morning to you.
Good morning.
As Tory election strategist, you have just blown a huge hole in your own strategy by making an £8 billion unfunded pledge on the NHS, exactly what you said you were not going to do. Why?
Well, I don't accept that at all. We have a balanced plan to grow our economy, to make savings in government, including in welfare, to fund our NHS each and every year, to give a tax cut to working people, so that we make work pay, we support our public services, and we have an economic policy that supports our entire country.
You've just found an extra £8 billion. All I'm asking is, where does it come from?
Well,
no higher taxes? Extra public spending cuts where?
Well, it's part of our balanced plan. And if you look over the last 5 years...
That's not really an answer,
Well, it is actually. If you look at the last 5 years, we found over £7 billion in real terms for the NHS. That's what happens when you have a sensible plan that makes savings in government, makes efficiencies in government, and then uses the dividends of that to fund our National Health Service each and every year, and to support working people with tax cuts. You can't have strong public services without a strong economy.
You're in a situation where you've told us there are huge public spending cuts to come. There's going to be a very, very tough time to get rid of the deficit. You said that in the autumn statement, and you've repeated it again in the budget. All I'm saying is you've now found, halfway through an election campaign, an extra £8 billion, which is not nothing.
No, we have always said we supported the NHS's own plan for its sustainable future, so we offer the best healthcare in the world and the best medicines.
But the money...
Simon Stevens, the chief executive, came up with that plan. We've worked with him. We've funded an initial part of it already. And because we have this balanced economic plan, because we are prepared to take difficult decisions in other parts of government, we can go on increasing the money to the NHS, just like we did in the last Parliament.
Okay.
You know, you said to me, Andrew, 5 years ago, you can't increase spending on the NHS every year. In the interview we did in the before the last election, we have increased spending on the NHS each year. We've also delivered a tax cut for working people
where the money is coming from. The inheritance tax announcement that you've made this morning, you have said we're going to fund that by raising taxes on some pensioners. So we know where the money is coming from. The £8 billion on the NHS, you have said nothing like that. It's totally opaque.
Well, I'll come on to the inheritance tax plan, but we have got a balanced proposal to make savings in government equivalent to £1 in every 100 that the government spends, so that, yes, we eliminate our deficit and fix the roof when the sun is shining, but also so we can fund a brilliant NHS and give a tax cut to working people. In this Parliament, we have found over £7 billion. And by the way, you know, in this Parliament, we had to make even more difficult decisions on public expenditure. We had 5 years of public expenditure restraint. And in the next Parliament, we need 2 years of public expenditure savings. We've set out the balanced plan to achieve it. And part of the balanced plan, and look, I'm not pretending it's easy, but we made a judgment call. Right? We want to back the people who rely on our National Health Service. We want to back the people who work in our National Health Service.
Don't say hard-working families, please.
I'm talking about all families in this country who rely on our National Health Service, and indeed the brilliant people who work in it.
So if you're not going to tell me where the money is coming from, I'm going to tell you where the money is coming from. It's going to come from even deeper cuts in the unprotected departmental spending budgets of around 14% in total. So you're going to hit the police, you're going to hit the armed forces, you're going to hit local government to pay for this.
We have to make similar savings each year as we've made in the 5 years of this Parliament, but for 2 years. So let's finish the job. Let's not leave this country exposed to the economic storms out there in the world. Let's eliminate the deficit, keep our national debt falling as a share of national income as it now is, as part of a plan for economic security in our country, security for families, security for our country, security for the businesses that create jobs.
Okay. So you're not going to give me an answer on the £8 billion where it's coming from. You haven't given me an answer. With respect, you've said the economy is going to grow, everything is going to be fine. Somehow we'll find the money. It's exactly what you attack Labour for again and again. You can never again say it's another unfunded Labour spending promise. Not after this.
Andrew, I come on this programme and say, yes, we've got to make difficult decisions in public expenditure.
But I won't tell you what they are.
Yes, we've got to save £1 out of £100 the government spends. Yes, we've got to make savings in government departments. Yes, we've got to make savings in welfare, including a freeze on working age benefits.
So where is the big cut coming? Is it
but
coming
that is part of a balanced plan in order to eliminate our deficit, give our country economic security so we create jobs, fund our National Health Service and make work pay by giving working people more of what they earn.
So it's fair for me to say to you this £8 billion is coming from deeper cuts in unprotected
It's part of our public expenditure plans. And you only have
it's not coming from extra taxes, is it?
Andrew, we have a track record in this Parliament where we found almost £8 billion extra in real terms for the National Health Service in very, very difficult economic circumstances. So we proved our mettle. We proved our ability to stand behind the National Health Service in this Parliament.
Let me try one last time.
In the next
Let me try one last time. 8 billion is the limit. It could be much higher than that. That's the bottom limit. It could be much higher than money if you don't get the efficiencies that you want, and you don't know that you will.
The assessment of the NHS itself. This is not my judgment.
Well, let's start with
the assessment of the NHS itself is that it can find those efficiencies, of course, because
you want to make sure every pound goes first. Let's stick with the 8 billion. You're not going to borrow that money, are you?
It's part of our.
Are you going to borrow an extra 8 billion?
It's part of our plan to reduce the deficit.
Are you going to borrow an extra 8 billion?
We're not. We don't have to borrow it because it's.
Are you going to raise it in taxes?
I've just explained. We've got a balanced plan that involves saving £13 billion in departments, £12 billion in welfare.
I'm talking,
we
yes, but
raise £5 billion extra from dealing with aggressive tax planning and tax avoidance and evasion.
So
as
no more,
part of
so
that
no
plan,
extra
you can
borrowing.
Fund the National Health Service.
You're not going to fund
the funding for the health service has always been integral to the plan.
So you're not going to fund the extra 8 billion for the health service by borrowing. You're not going to fund it by taxes. That only leaves you extra spending cuts, doesn't it?
If you have a sensible plan to balance your public finances, you have a stronger economy and you have stronger public services.
I keep asking you very straight questions about where the money's coming from. You keep saying sensible and balanced and sensible. That's not, with respect, exactly what I'm asking. I'm just asking where the money comes from.
I've just given you very specific numbers. By the way, you don't get anything like that from the Labour Party. Indeed, they don't even talk about this NHS forward view.
Actually, it's very interesting. They're offering less money for the NHS in the first period, 2.5 billion, but they are saying exactly how they're going to raise the money, which you are not.
Let's be clear. If you have an Ed Miliband Scottish Nationalist government, they will trash this economy and they won't be able to pay for the public services. Right? And they will undermine economic security and cost people jobs in this country, and we'd be back to square one, and that would be an outrage. Given all the work we've done in this country to get where we are, so we can support people in work and can create jobs and can support our national health service.
OK. Well, let's talk about something that is funded. You find £1 billion for the inheritance tax giveaway. There you are as Chancellor. You find an extra £1 billion. You're not thinking, first and foremost, about all those people on welfare who are wondering what cuts they're going to face, the disabled people, people with families, people in real trouble. No, you're going to give it to relatively well-off people in the southeast of England who've got houses they'd like to hand down. Doesn't that say a lot about your values?
I think this is about values. And Conservatives support the basic human instinct to provide for your children. And we believe that your home, which you've worked for and you've saved for, should belong to you and your family, not the taxman. So we will take family homes out of inheritance tax. We will effectively increase the inheritance tax threshold to £1 million so that only millionaires pay inheritance tax, as originally designed for that tax.
What about the children of families on welfare?
We are on the side of hard-working people. We want to support the most vulnerable in our society, but you do that by backing the aspirations in our society as well. And the basic aspiration to provide for your children is a deep-rooted human instinct, which we support. Now, other parties may not. Other parties may think, OK, you've been taxed when you earned it, taxed when you bought the home, now we're going to tax you when you die. Actually, Conservatives don't believe that. We believe you should protect the family home. Today, we're taking the family home out of inheritance tax.
Do you think it was shrewd, adroit politics and a good use of language to describe the Leader of the Opposition as a backstabber?
Well, I think this goes to the judgment of the person who wants to be our Prime Minister, Ed Miliband. And he won the leadership of the Labour Party on the back of trade union votes. Now he wants to get into Downing Street on the back of the Scottish Nationalists. It would be an Ed Miliband Scottish Nationalist government that would undermine our economic security, undermine our national security.
The attack was about standing against his brother. What is wrong with that? In democratic politics, if people want to stand for a job, they have every right to do so.
Look, he won the Labour leadership standing against his brother, but with the support of the trade unions. He didn't actually win the support of the rest of his party. Now he wants to get into this country, into Downing Street, not with the support of the country, but with the support of the Scottish Nationalist Party.
I'm sure he's fighting for every vote.
It is this alliance between people who want to bankrupt our country and people who want to break up our country, and that is on the ballot paper on May the 7th. People want to know, if you want to avoid an Ed Miliband Scottish Nationalist government, you have got to support the Conservatives in this election.
Did he backstab his brother?
Well, he stood against his brother.
Well, that's different,
and used deals with the trade unions to get himself into office.
Is that backstabbing?
Well,
really?
Of course it's backstabbing, and it's perfectly reasonable.
I mean,
Andrew, it's
more than somebody standing against Margaret Thatcher, or a leader, or Margaret Thatcher standing against Edward Heath. Is that backstabbing?
Look, it goes to the question of the judgment of the person who wants to be our Prime Minister. And he is prepared to entertain an arrangement with Scottish nationalists who want to weaken our national security, borrow and tax even more, take our country back to square one and break it apart.
None of which has anything to do with his brother. But moving finally on, what about the Conservative campaign this week? a lot of people have looked at this and said, this is the week when you have stalled, and they don't see where you are going to find the extra seats you need to cross the finishing line and form a majority government.
Well, I just don't accept that at all. If you look over the last week, we've set out ambitious plans for 1 million more homeowners, 2 million more jobs, 3 million apprentices. We've got such a positive...
aren't moving.
We've got such a positive and ambitious vision for our country. But let me just say this. It is a close election, and if you think you can sit this election out or vote for a protest party, then you will let Ed Miliband and the Scottish Nationalists in. Stick with the positive vision.
And that's a real threat in your view?
I think it's a threat, and there's a positive vision from the Conservatives as the alternative.
For now, George Osborne, thank you very much.